So Elysium is Neill Blomkamp's new movie. Now, this is the guy who brought us District 9, which was probably one of the sort of most creative and original sci-fi movies that we had that year. Elysium is his follow-up starring Matt Damon, which basically follows a character who is living in future Los Angeles and gets sick and has to try and fly out to a space station which is orbiting a sort of a very run-down Earth. A space station which has been built by the sort of rich and well-to-do as a place to live, and that's called Elysium. Now, Elysium has no illness, no crime or anything like that. It's basically the Beverly Hills of future Earth. Earth has gone to sort of heck in a handbasket, and Elysium is the shining light of where everybody wants to live. So Matt Damon's character, in an accident at work, in a job that he absolutely hates, gets sick and knows that the medical supplies on Elysium can cure him, so goes about trying to get a ticket up there. Now, this film is very much, in terms of Neill Blomkamp's career, it's very much in line with District 9 in as much as it's a sci-fi action movie with a social conscience. Now, while a lot of what Neill Blomkamp chooses to comment on, the divide between rich and poor and different neighbourhoods, for example, it isn't subtle. It's not a subtle film. I like the fact that there is sort of enough in there to make it different and make it sort of stand out from your other blockbusters that have come out in 2013. The reason being is I do enjoy sci-fi with a social conscience, and I think that science fiction is one of those genres that can allow you to really deconstruct and comment on the world that we live in now in an interesting and exciting way. And Elysium does strive to do that. What I did think as well going into this movie, having an idea of what the plot was going to be, that I kind of worried that I wouldn't relate to Matt Damon's character because, you know, why should you get to go up there and heal yourself? But when they present him in the film, and this is probably due in no small part to Matt Damon's performance, his character, once he learns he's sick and once he knows he has to get up to Elysium, he never puts himself above anybody else. He never thinks he's better than the neighbourhood in which he lives or the job that he works in. He actually, you know, I think that was a fine line to walk, you know, between the sort of sense of self-righteousness. But I think that Matt Damon and Neill Blomkamp managed to sidestep that potential caveat and have him be quite an interesting character. So that sort of put my mind at ease while I was watching the film. It also features Sharlto Copley, who was the main character in District 9, as a sort of mercenary / bounty hunter in this, who is hired by Jodie Foster's sort of high-up CEO of Elysium to take out Matt Damon. He is probably the best thing in it. I mean, Sharlto Copley is one of those actors that anything he's in, he's always the scene stealer. He's always the best thing about any movie that he's in, and he steals every scene in this film too. He's talking in his normal South African accent from what I can tell, and he's just a very interesting presence. I mean, they establish very quickly that this guy is mentally ill and has an untold amount of mental issues, and also has, I believe, a rap sheet of, you know, crimes against humanity and violation of human rights and violence. And they established very early on that, you know, he's mentally ill and he's not a very nice guy. He's not the sort of guy you would want chasing you across a derelict Los Angeles in the future, let's put it that way. You've got Jodie Foster as the sort of the big bad villain on Elysium, who is fine. I mean, she's not given sort of an awful lot to do with her character. I mean, it shows that, you know, she sort of takes matters into her own hands a lot of the time when, you know, immigrants could potentially sneak onto Elysium. She has them killed or destroyed. She's very ruthless, and I think Jodie Foster has the right sort of cold demeanour to pull that off. So she's absolutely fine as a villain, but like I say, the villain role really goes to Sharlto Copley. As far as the direction goes, it's very similar in terms of style and tone to District 9. It's the sort of shaky cam, dusty, almost gritty and realistic science fiction. There's also the very spectacular kill scenes. People remember District 9 for, you know, the different weapons and the different methods in which people are killed. There's even a scene in District 9 where somebody fires a pig at somebody with a levitating gun. Now, while there's nothing as ridiculous as that in Elysium, there are very creative death scenes, one of which is inflicted upon a character who you really, you don't expect to see this happen to them, and that character has their face completely blown off. It's very creative, and it's very clear that Neill Blomkamp must like filmmakers like Paul Verhoeven. I did feel this about District 9, and I feel it about Elysium as well. It feels like these are modern day Paul Verhoeven movies, if Paul Verhoeven had carried on making the sort of weird sci-fi that he used to do in the 80s and 90s. From that perspective, I really enjoyed it. I did really like this movie because, as I said earlier, it's a sci-fi film with a social conscience. It has more to say beyond the, oh, I'm on a mission, or let's blow stuff up, or let's kill each other. It's the fact that it has that undercurrent of sociological and political issues running through it gives you something to latch onto and makes it relatable to a present day audience. It's, to be honest, it was better than I was expecting, because going in, I'd already read a couple of reviews that said, it was really disappointed, it didn't really amount to anything. I think it's because it's not District 9 2 or District 10. It's not as good as District 9, at least not on first viewing anyway. So perhaps people had sort of too high expectations, or are expecting something different. But I thought it was really good. I think, had you not seen District 9 and you went into this, you would think it was such a fresh sci-fi film, and such a fresh spin on the genre sort of thing, that you'd maybe enjoy it a lot more if you're one of those people who felt disappointed. I really enjoyed it. I would highly recommend it to fans of science fiction and action movies. Matt Damon is great as always, but then again, when is Matt Damon not great? So Elysium, I would highly recommend. Like I say, standout is Sharlto Copley. It's a very violent movie, but it's very enjoyable, and it has that social conscience to give you something to think about after the credits roll. So yeah, Elysium is highly recommended.